So starting with my eyeshadow palette collection, this is the largest palette that I have. This is the Beauty Bay Bright Matte palette. This is the 42 color palette. It's the matte variant. This is the biggest palette that I own. It doesn't fit into my drawer vertically. It's one of my favorite palettes that I have. It's a rainbow palette and I love that. Since I saw it on my Instagram page, I wanted it. It is the perfect color palette for any colorful look that you want to create. It has a white, so you can pastel, like you can turn these colors pastely by mixing it with the white. You don't have to have a separate pastel palette, and it has almost all the colors, and I love how it goes very deep. The black is like one of the most pigmented blacks ever, and the formula is very easy to work, very blendable, slightly powdery, but doesn't cause a lot of fallout. I really love this palette. This is one of my favorite shades. I've used this green a lot. Really like this palette. I feel like this is an essential palette for me. I use it for every colorful look. I have two palettes from Beauty Bay. I have the Earthy 16 pan version. There is a 42 pan version of this and a 9 pan version of this. I got the 16 pan version of it. I felt like that was the sweet spot with in concern to the colors and shimmers. As you can see, I really like it's the same matte formula as that palette, and it has a lot of greens. I'm obsessed with greens. Green is my favorite color, so I really wanted to have this palette. Another thing about Beauty Bay palettes is that they're so affordable and the quality is amazing. So I really enjoy using Beauty Bay palettes. And the shimmers, the shimmer formula from Beauty Bay is insane. Look at that. Look at to another palette. This is another colorful palette. This is the BPerfect Carnival 3 Love Tahiti palette. They have 5 variants, 5 palettes in the Carnival series. Now I chose the third one. I really like the third one. I think it's the best version to pick out of all, because this is strictly colorful. Like the latest one has grays in it, the previous one was green and orangish, and this one has like bright neons in it. That's why I picked it up. I really enjoy the formula. Again, the black is super pigmented. Like the mattes are very blendable and super pigmented. I love the variety. I love how dark it goes, and the shimmers are also really good. I know it's pointless having two colorful palettes, but I just think that the tones in this palette are just slightly more on the neon side than this palette. That's why I feel that these both work into my collection. The one is this Jaclyn Hill and Morphe Volume 1. I heard Morphe has filed for bankruptcy. I don't know, but yeah, this is like my favorite neutral palette ever. It has this pop of color. Otherwise, like if you remove it, it's completely neutral. This quad here makes it look more colorful than it actually is. I don't like this row here. These do not show up at all and don't look flattering on my skin tone. But other than that, I love this quad. I love this part right here, especially these two are my favorite browns ever. So I really enjoy this palette. And another one, I have this glitter palette. I got suckered into a lot of Instagram videos and I saw this glitter palette being used. I really love the colors here. So yeah, I don't use it a ton, but I still think that this might come in handy one day. If you are a makeup artist who uses glitter a lot, this might come in handy for you. To my Pat McGrath palettes, this is the Pat McGrath Celestial Odyssey palette. This was their holiday palette for 2020 1. I didn't get the 2022 because that was a colorful palette, and as you've seen, I have a lot of colorful palettes. I wasn't interested in this palette initially, but then I saw people creating looks with this green. This green has been all the rage even recently, like Charlotte Tilbury's hypnotizing pop shot in the shade, I don't know the shade, the green one. It's like it's almost identical, so that's why I didn't pick that up. That green one, not that it launched in India, but I didn't pick that up because I felt like this was a dupe. It doesn't look that attractive. I think the packaging and this thing is very disturbing to the layout to the palette, but the shimmers, like these are not shimmers, this is the most shimmery one out of all, but the metallics are very, it's a very velvety soft formula. It has a bit of a fallout, but I personally feel that these are really good shades for everyday use, and that shimmery black is gorgeous. I don't have anything like that. Then I have two Mothership palettes from Pat McGrath. These two palettes, I have the Mothership 5 and the Mothership 9 Utopian Dreams. This was my first Mothership palette. I kept seeing review videos of Pat McGrath, and that they had the most amazing shades, these astral blitz shades, that they were supposed to be insane and out of this world, and I had to see it for myself. Look at that shift. They are quite amazing, but one thing I would say is that I will in the future not be buying any Pat McGrath palette at the full price, like the Celestial, like this one I didn't buy at the full price. These two I got them at full price, so I am not going to be buying them at full price, but I love these shimmers. The mattes in this palette are not my favorite. I love the tones in this palette. The formula is, I feel like sometimes it works and sometimes it just gives up on me, so that's a bit annoying, especially at this price point, but nonetheless I love this palette. This one is a bit more colorful, and I feel like in Pat McGrath terms, the outside carton packaging has gone down from this to this. Like this feels a bit flimsier in comparison to this, but again, this is like one of the most beautiful palettes ever, and I feel that the Astral Blitz formula in this palette is much more flaky and more shimmery than Bronze Seduction. But I really like this palette because the mattes in here are not like, there is a neutral brown. All of them are not mauve leaning or pink leaning or maroon leaning like in the Mothership 10, which I absolutely despise. Gifted, this one I was also gifted. Unleshia is a Korean brand. It's a K-beauty brand, and they have this palette called Glitterpedia, and this glitter formula is amazing. It is a chunky glitter, but it does not feel scratchy. It's a very soft glitter formula. I don't know how to put it. And these neutrals, the mattes are very buildable. Like these are soft mattes, as in K-beauty. K-beauty does not have full-on pigment, so these are soft matte, but they build up beautifully, they blend beautifully, and I really like, I am a sucker for neutral brown palettes, and this is truly neutral. It's not warm, it's not cool tone, so I enjoy this palette a lot. And it's from an Indian brand, Lakme. I was gifted this palette, and I actually feel shocked at the quality of the mattes in here. This matte is amazing. Like this is the reason that I didn't buy Natasha Denona retro palette, because I was really into that berry toned, especially that dark berry tone matte, and this one does it for me. So I felt like I didn't have to spend that much money, and I could like have a dupe for it basically. It's a color dupe. I wouldn't call it a dupe in formula, but I have another one of Adept's palette coming in later this month, so it won't be standalone anymore. But this is the Adept Ninhydrin palette. I am obsessed with this palette. This palette has the most amazing duochromes. Look at that shift. Can you see that shift? Most amazing duochromes, shimmery, pigmented, like the jewel tones. This pink, it's so creamy. It's like almost like a liner. It's like a gel liner. It's that creamy. This green, this blue, I find it's slightly difficult to blend. It's more like a just pack it on kind of shade, but other than that, I'm like obsessed with this palette, like obsessed. Then I have the Natasha Denona gold palette. So when I heard that this palette was going to be discontinued, like this was like one of those palettes that I used to see on Pinterest, and absolutely like it bewitched me basically, because of it's a brown neutral palette with pops of gold. I used to be obsessed with gold as well, but then I heard that this was going to be discontinued, and I used to see Lauren May Beauty's videos on this, and I had to have it. So I somehow managed to get my hands on it, and that too at half off. It's an absolutely amazing palette. And I have this Kaleidos Escape Pod palette. This is the repackaged version, the newer variant. Again, saw it on Instagram, fell in love, had to have it. This is another colorful palette, but the shimmers are insane. The shimmers are so fine but glittery. The finish that they give, it's so amazing. This periwinkle, it's like almost very peri. It's a perfect very peri color. These pops of neons, this green, especially if your palette has a brown and a green, I am done. I want that palette. Then I have one from Oden's Eye. This brand was getting a lot of hype last year. So this is a collab palette with Judy here on YouTube, but I went for the neutral one. Again, beautiful formula, beautiful duochromes, pop of red. But this is not a neutral palette actually. This is a very warm palette in my opinion. It goes very warm, especially on my skin tone. But I don't have a warm palette, so it fills in that gap. I love the shimmers. The shimmers are very sparkly. They are very scattered. Like in the end, they give a very scattered look. But again, I really like the formula, and I like how compact it is. So it's great for travel as well. I have these two Huda Beauty palettes. I have the Nude Obsessions palette in medium Obsessions. I wanted this palette because I thought it would be brown, but actually the mattes lean very pink, and I don't like these two tones. But again, the formula is really good, and it is a very small palette, very compact, and this is my travel palette, so I can't let go of that. But this palette, I think this is like one of the best palettes Huda has ever done. This is the Rose Quartz palette, and it is just amazing, and it shows up. The mattes are not here to play. Even the lightest mattes, these mattes show up. These shimmers are so flaky, so reflective, amazing. It's definitely worth the money, and if you wait for a Nykaa sale, you can get it at almost 40 to 50% off, and I think that is crazy. I wish I would have waited for that sale, but I think this palette is worth it even at the full price. All my Colourpop palettes. Yeah, these two are. This is the first Star Wars palette. This is the second Star Wars palette. I was obsessed with the Mandalorian. This palette, I think this is one of the This is one of Colourpop's best palettes ever. Love the green tones, the muted green tones in this. Olives. This neutral is perfect to blend anything out. This Super Shock is amazing. This shimmer is very flaky. It goes very deep, and I think I especially enjoy this for creating wedding looks. The second part of this series, the Mandalorian series, and I really enjoy this palette as well. It has silvers, gunmetals, some neutrals, but cool tone neutrals. And so I really like this palette too. It's not as shimmery as the previous one, but I still like that palette, and I wanted to have a collection. This is the Colourpop That's Taupe palette. I didn't have a cool tone palette. I got this before the Huda one. I didn't have a neutral cool tone palette, and this is a perfect cool tone palette. If you're into K-beauty looks, like the Douyin looks or K-beauty looks, this palette is perfect, and it shows up on my skin too. I'm NC37 in MAC, so I feel that this is a very good palette, and I love the packaging. No, this is my second palette ever. My first palette was the Jaclyn Hill volume 1. This is the second palette that I ever got. I really love purples. I think you can see that in my collection. I really like purples, so I got this palette, but I have not used this in a very long time, and I don't want to keep it, so I'm thinking that I might declutter this palette. Then this is the Just My Luck palette. This is the, like, these both of these are the part of the monochrome series that Colourpop initially started, and it was very popular. This was the green variant. I wasn't satisfied with this green, that's why I got the Beauty Bay Earthy palette, but still I really like the formula of this palette, and these two palettes work very well as companion palettes. This neon is really good. It's like an old formula. These glitters are not as shimmery as what I'm used to using right now, but still I feel like this is a good palette. So where this count has ended, I have 20 palettes in, like 21 palettes in my eyeshadow collection. I am going to declutter this, so, and I have Adept Minka coming in, so my number will still remain 21, and I'm pretty satisfied with my collection. Where my collection is at the moment, I feel like I can create any variety of looks that I want.